I think Reform are a little bit rattled, and they're not quite sure that they've kept control of the narrative, which is why it surprises me as much as your listeners that I am the main story on the news and getting mentioned again at PMQs. I mean, I can't help thinking, Josh, that what's happened is that everybody in Britain, they stayed up late to watch England versus Mexico, and you're all having a group hallucination from not enough sleep. And this isn't real.
First, we're going to talk to the former Brexit Party MEP and UKIP spin doctor Alex Phillips. She's now a presenter on Talk TV and a long-standing supporter of Mr Farage. Good morning, Alex. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah, all right. It's obviously afternoon now. It's been a long day already. What do you make of this? I mean, this by-election gambit seemed to sort of fall apart in a matter of hours yesterday, didn't it? No one wants to stand against him.
Well, and it depends how one frames it. It depends how one regards that. Is it looking at it through the prism of all the other parties are ganging together, refusing to partake in democracy and therefore represent an establishment against Nigel, against the people? Or are you of the opinion that it's Nigel Farage against Count Binface? So I think the next 48 hours are going to be critical in all of this. The next 48 hours will determine if the Chancellor allows a by-election to take place. Well, if she says, yes, there should be a by-election, well, why not put forward a candidate? If she says, no, there shouldn't be a by-election, does that then again look as though they are shirking an electoral challenge, particularly as Andy Burnham has triggered 2 by-elections now in order to become leader of the Labour Party and our future Prime Minister? So it really, I think, depends on one's will, on one's sort of cognitive bias when it comes to how they're going to react to what takes place over the next couple of days.
But Alex, given the rationale for this by-election, which we all know what it is, it's to change the narrative and go, and preempt these parliamentary investigations into Nigel Farage's finances. Why should the other parties play along? I mean, Andy Burnham's called it a gimmick. Why should
parties have played along in standing in Makerfield? There was no need, really, for the sitting MP there, Josh Simmons, to stand down. So, the question is, when it comes to democracy, do you get to pick and choose when you play and when you don't play? And it seems to me that what we have in the past is a record of the Conservative Party and the Labour Party working together to block local elections, which Reform campaigned hard legally to overturn and make sure that plebiscite took place. This has been something that's permeated through our political processes ever since Brexit, quite frankly, ever since that referendum, which we then had 4 years in Parliament trying to overturn the result at any cost. And it does feel a little bit like right now in the United Kingdom as if democracy has just become a side thought. It's it's an option to take if people think they're going to win and if the rules of the game, are set according to whoever decides they should be set. And that allegation can be put against the Conservative Party, against the Labour Party. It could potentially now be put against Reform. But I think what Nigel Farage is trying to do is shine a light on this. This is why I say the messaging strategy over the next 48 hours is going to be critical. How are the general public going to see it? Because looking right now,
but Alex,
yesterday's decision, I don't think people are moving. If they support Reform, they support his choice. If they don't, they don't. I don't actually think the needle's moving much in either direction.
Well, it may not. I mean, but if he does end up and it's just him versus his lordship, Count Binface, I mean, is that not just quite a humiliation? Do you think he will even go ahead with it if that is how things settle?
Of course, it would be a farce. But what you'd have to say is who's been the genesis of the farce? Is it Nigel Farage saying, "Look, you're pushing for me to face an election in my own constituency. Come on, let's do it," and then everyone else goes, "Actually, no, we don't really want to because we're probably not going to win, and it's not on our terms." So this is what I'm saying. The framing of this narrative is going to be critical. Now, I'm in the middle on this because I'm looking at this from as an outsider, as a journalist, as a political strategist, and seeing that this can go down 2 different avenues. But I think what you will find, as I've just said, is those people who support Reform and support Nigel Farage will see it in the way that Reform would like this to be framed. Those that don't will regard it through the lens of legacy media, legacy parties. But I think everybody nationally can take a look at what's gone on in democracy over the past 10 years since Brexit and see that it's not in a very healthy condition in this country when people can switch prime ministers at the drop of a hat, call a by-election because they fancy being Labour leader, where 20,000 people, 0.03% of the population, have a say on who's going to govern 70 million of us. And we can actually look at the games that are played by politicians politicking rather than coming up with policy programmes and actually diagnose the problem with the patient on the table, which is nobody cares about governing the country anymore. They just care about sticking it to their opponents. And we deserve better as British people. We deserve more.
74,000 people in Makerfield. But this
20,000 voted for him, that's it.
This investigation isn't going away. So what's your understanding of what happens next here? I mean, if Nigel Farage goes to a by-election in Clacton and wins a majority, which he likely would, the investigation would return, and we could end up in the bizarre situation of having another by-election, potentially, theoretically. I mean, how do you see things playing out?
Well, I don't know. That's the thing. We live in unprecedented times, don't we? Because nobody knows what the outcome of the standards watchdog is going to be, and if it's passed to the parliamentary committee. One would imagine these things run on tracks, and that actually that's a sort of a foregone conclusion because the establishment will want to see Nigel Farage punished and persecuted. That is at least what the expectation from within reform appears to be, which is why they're trying to handle control of the narrative, handle the timing, and say to their opponents, if you want to do me in, shoot me in the face, don't shoot me in the back. And everyone's gone, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to play that game.
The core of this, it seems to me, is just a problem. Why didn't Nigel Farage just declare these donations? I mean,
I can't answer that, can I? How can I answer that? I'm not him. I don't work for the party. I'm not inside their offices,
no, I agree,
know.
but why can't he? Why can't he just explain?
My understanding is, my understanding is that these things were cleared off, that these things were discussed, that the sense within reform is that this is some sort of a witch hunt. This is setting up a false narrative. This is looking for any sort of loophole, any sort of opportunity to use lawfare against the party. That is the party's position, as far as I can tell. I'm not in the party. I don't know what's gone on here as much as you do, as much as anybody does. And also, what you should know as a journalist, and I'm sure you do, Josh, is when things are being investigated, there is not much that can be said by the person who's under the spotlight as that process takes place. So he is probably very unable to stand up and say, this is what's happened, X, Y, and Z. Now, has this been handled well as a communication strategy? Do people as the voters see this through the prism of Nigel Farage saying, this is a witch hunt, this is lawfare, I've done nothing wrong, or not? That again comes down to messaging strategy. But only when we see an outcome to this investigation might we have some sort of answers. I don't know what that will be, but I think most of us, whether we like Nigel Farage, loathe him, feel indifferent, I think most of us will probably be in agreement that actually it's doubtless a foregone conclusion, because that is what essentially the people who have control over the process will want to see happen.
So Nigel Farage, if nothing else, is a great disruptor in British politics. We now have another disruptor joining us, which is Lord Binface. I mean, do you think, Alex, it will be strange for Farage, the great populist, to go up against this other populist crusader, Count Binface, who is his own maverick insurgent?
Look, Count Binface pops up at all sorts of elections.
Well, he's with us. I mean, you can talk to him directly.
Oh, great. Hello, Binface. It's a wonderful idiosyncratic, very British quirk of our politics. But then also, I was talking about democracy in this country, looking as if it's just been thrown into the dustbin of history. And I see in my mind's eye that image of Andy Burnham, who's going to become our next Prime Minister, standing on a stage with a man dressed as a fox on one side and a man dressed as a dustbin on the other side. If you want optics of what is going on in this country with politicians politicking and not governing,
let's hear what the man with the bin on his head has to say. But what's your response to that, Mr. Binface?
Well, firstly, get the name right. It's Count Binface, with an O, not Lord. I would announce my peerage. And, Alex she's making a very good fist of defending the reform position. I sort of applaud her for her work on that. But, who is the novelty candidate? That's my question. I came down from to this planet, to your planet. I was supposed to be the sort of exotic one, the sort of spoiled ballot with a smile. And now look, all the other parties have ran their frit. I love that political word, frit. and it's just me versus Nigel in a by-election, which I think the great British people know really shouldn't have been called. So, yeah, who is the strange one, I ask you?
Alex, what do you think? Are the other candidates running scared?
Of course they are. Of course they are, because look, if they wanted to have a democratic fight, they have one, which is why actually the jeopardy is now on Rachel Reeves. Does she block this by-election and say, well, it's a farce, it costs too much money, which raises the question, well, it was okay when it was Andy Burnham, wasn't it? Or does she allow it to take place and then say, yes, we're going to have it, but we won't take part in it ourselves? So this is what I'm talking about, that narrative, the angle, the prism through which one regards what's going on is going to be critical the next couple of days.
Right. Alex Phillips, Talk TV host and Reform UK member, thank you very much for joining us. The sort of trenchant defence of Nigel Farage there. But his opponent is likely to be Count Binface. Sorry, I called him Lord because I always thought a Viscount went by a Lord, but I suppose a Count is not a Viscount. So let's get our Debrett's etiquette right here. But welcome to the programme, Count.
Well, it's lovely to be here, Josh. And yes, absolutely. You know, I gave myself a little upgrade. But previously I was going to abolish all the lords except me. But now I thought I'd go the whole hog and I'm going to wipe them out, all of them. And, you know, you sort of said that Alex gave a trenchant opinion there. I think listeners can hear what's going on. I think Reform are a little bit rattled. And they're not quite sure that they've kept control of the narrative, which is why it surprises me as much as your listeners that I am the main story on the news and getting mentioned again at PMQs. I mean, I can't help thinking, Josh, that what's happened is that everybody in Britain, they stayed up late to watch England versus Mexico, and you're all having a group hallucination. Not enough sleep, and this isn't real.
Cat, have you ever been to Clacton? Have you had a pint at the Moon and Starfish?
Well, I thought I'd take a leaf out of the current incumbent's book, and so I specifically have never visited it because I thought that was the damn thing.
How are you planning your political strategy? It's quite difficult because we still don't know if this by-election will take place. There could be a second by-election. Currently, the parties aren't standing candidates against Farage. How difficult does that make your political strategy meetings? Presumably, you have a team of strategists around you as well.
You might think that's not true. It's just me and my second in command, General Waste, and we've been flabbergasted by the lovely comments we've had from the great humans in terms of strategy. I mean, remember, I'm not a candidate yet. There's no, you were just alighting on. There's not even an election yet, and Rachel Reeves would have good reasons for not allowing it.
Are we going to have any new policies, Count?
Well, that's it. I've got to tailor them to each locale. I mean, the national ones will remain, Josh. You know, Claudia Winkleman's Fringe to be grade 1 listed. Build at least one affordable house. Bring back CFAX. People who use speakerphone on public transport to be conscripted, and so it goes on. I've got plenty, but I think the 99 flakes to be price capped at 99p for a seaside resort. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that could go down well there. But you do have a problem here, which is if you do win, by convention, MPs cannot address the House wearing a hat. So how are you going to address a potential constitutional crisis there?
I think we'll cross that political bridge when we get to it, don't you, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could argue it's a bin, not a hat. But I suppose what I'm getting at really is the central question here, which is, can you win? I mean, I saw on the betting markets yesterday, your odds have slashed from 10-1 to 5-1. People are getting behind you. There has been tactical voting against Farage, against Farage's reform rather, in other constituencies, other by-elections. How realistic are your prospects here, Count?
Well, again, it's very early to say, Josh, because who knows how many candidates may stand in the end. Just because I've said I'm game for it, there could be another candidate, a sort of Martin Bell figure, come through the middle, or a menagerie of other sort of exotic creatures who take the Clacton residents' fancy. I'm not bold enough to say this is a two electoral horse race. What I will say is my strategy is this: that did you know that at each by-election, this one it's slated to cost the British taxpayer £348,000. I read that in the Times. Good paper.
Yeah.
And so if there's a second one, that's another 348k. But if people vote for me in, there won't be a second election. So I'll have saved taxpayers almost 350 grand before I've even started. So there's that.
You could put that on the side of a lorry. I think you might be in there.
Exactly.
Count Binface, thank you for joining us. A political revolution beckons. That is Count Binface, the prospective parliamentary candidate for the Clacton by-election, and perhaps many others following that.